and welcome to this special Enfield Voices interview today for Halloween. My name's Katy Davies and I'm here at Fawlty Hall to interview Jay Hollis, author of Haunted Enfield. He's going to be telling us a bit more about his work, how he first got interested in the paranormal and some of the ghostly stories of this area. Hi Jay, thanks so much for coming to speak to us today. Tell us why specifically you brought us to Fawlty Hall today.
Well, this house is a major part of my life throughout my childhood. I was born and lived about 5-minute walk away from here. So this park and that house was my playground. And I've known for probably almost as long as I can remember that the house has ghost stories associated with it. So it was important for me to have this side of the house, in fact, is what is on the front cover of the book.
Yeah. So tell me a bit more about some of the iconic ghosts that have featured at Fawlty Hall.
Well, there's an old story that says that a serving girl who worked here she was told off or reprimanded sternly, and she ran away, or so the adults in the house thought. But in fact she'd gone to hide in the cellar. Oh. And she ended up being locked in there and died. Okay. And the story goes that that's the ghost that haunts the hall. However, on closer inspection, it seems that the story was made up not so long ago, maybe about 50 years ago. And it's not really possible that if there was a girl or anybody locked in the cellars, if they were screaming for help, that they wouldn't be heard. They would be heard. So that ghost story, which was the ghost story that I originally knew, turned out to not be. I don't think it's a genuine story, and the people that work at the hall don't think it's genuine. However, there is a story associated with the house, in that over the years, since the house was open to the public in 1951, staff have frequently been asked whether the house is haunted, and 8 times out of 10 the people asking have just come downstairs from the first landing, where they've felt that they're being watched. And it's always by that window on the first floor, the central window, that part of the landing. People get this uneasy feeling that they're being watched, that someone's standing just behind them. So much so that they'll look round to see if there is somebody there. Yeah. And of course there isn't. In 1986 there was an electrical engineer who was fixing a plug socket. I believe it was a plug socket that he was mending, and he kept on feeling that there was somebody behind him, and of course there wasn't. And then about 5 years later, one of the cleaners was cleaning the landing, and she kept on. She could see through the corner of her eye. Somebody. She was down on the floor scrubbing, and there was somebody standing behind her, and she could just see the side of this person.
Oh, that's quite eerie.
And see that they had like a black sleeve.
Yep.
And she looked round, nothing there. Carried on working. She could see it again. Looked round, nobody there. And she just put it down to her imagination. But it kept happening. A few weeks later, same thing. And then one of the rooms that she had to clean every day is the room with there's a 4-poster bed in there, and you can now go into that room and you can look all around the room, but at the time all you could do with that room was step inside, and there was a little part cordoned off, and you could look around the room but you couldn't enter the room. And she kept on finding that the bed, the bedclothes had been moved around. It looked like somebody had been either lying on it or sitting on it, and she kept having to straighten it out. And she asked the other members of staff, and they said that no, it wasn't them. And it's possible that a member of the public may have crossed over the cordon and rolled about on the bed, but it kept on happening all the time.
Yeah, it's very mysterious, so you can't be sure it wasn't something slightly more spooky than that. So obviously Fawlty Hall's got an awful lot of history. There's a lot of other landmarks in Enfield as well that share that kind of history. Tell us about a few more of those that are kind of ghostly hotspots in the area.
Well, in the book there's, I've lost count, there's about 30 different instances of hauntings in various places, spread across 20 chapters. Some of the major buildings, landmark buildings in the borough that have had strange activity. There's Trent Park, the house, as opposed to the park itself, the actual house. There's a fascinating story there, where in the 1920s, Sir Philip Sassoon, who owned the house at the time, he had the first and second floor levels raised by 4 feet.
Yeah.
But there were stories of a ghost that I've seen there, a lady walking along in a Victorian dress, but she's seen from the waist up. She's, that's where the floor is.
Right.
And she's still walking along the old floor levels.
Oh.
And there was one instance of the security guard, I think it might have been the head of security, who saw her one night walking along the top corridor, waist up, and he didn't hang around. He ran to the stairs. He ran down the staircase, which opens out onto the corridor below that, and then you have to run along the corridor to get to the next staircase to go down to the ground floor. And in doing so, he could see the bottom of
that's so
her.
strange.
He could see her feet walking along. And he had a number of scary moments in that house. And of course, it's now being redeveloped by Berkeley Homes, and within a few years, there's going to be a museum on the ground floor.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see, perhaps, if there's any more ghost sightings once that area's changed.
It'll be interesting. The 2 top floors of the house are being converted into private residences.
Oh, interesting.
So it'll be interesting to see if anybody living there meets her walking along waist up, or even waist down.
So one of the most famous ghosts in Enfield, which we can't really get away without asking about, is the Enfield poltergeist. Most people may have seen the recent film or read many of the books about it. For anyone who doesn't know the story though, tell us a little bit more about what was meant to have happened there.
Well, the events there started in 1977 when the children involved in the case complained to their mum that their bed kept on moving, and she probably told them off for messing around. And then the next day, a cabinet, a heavy chest of drawers, moved about 4 foot across the room, at which point she grabbed the kids and they ran off to a neighbour's house, and eventually, I think the same night, the police were called to look for an intruder.
Yeah, sure.
And the police, I believe there were 2 police officers that turned up, and they saw things move. Yeah. And it escalated from there. There was a press photographer from the Daily Mirror who was invited to come and do an article. And he had a brand new camera, walked into the house, went to take photos, couldn't get any photos, camera wouldn't work. Yeah. Went outside the house, camera was fine. And he advised them to contact the Society for Psychical Research, and they sent Maurice Grosse, who within months became one of the most famous paranormal investigators in the country, if not in the world. The case has, there are those that believe it was true, there were those that would believe it was a hoax. There were certainly incidents that were created by the children.
Yeah.
And they were quite pathetic. The investigators caught them out every time.
Yeah.
And then there were the things that children just couldn't.
Yeah, and couldn't be explained. So I suppose that's quite difficult in a way, because it probably cast doubt on.
It certainly
the more
did cast doubt.
Realistic
examples. And then the press launched on that.
Yeah.
And focused on that. And after about 18 months, all of the activity was dying down.
Yeah.
Anyway, which was putting pressure on the children to make more things happen, to try and keep the interest up. There was one incident where Maurice Grosse was talking to Janet, the focus of the poltergeist, while she was in her bed. And then he finished talking to her. He went downstairs. He hadn't got to the bottom of the stairs, and there was a terrific crash. And he turned around, he went running upstairs. The other people that were downstairs, they went running upstairs. And they found that a gas fire that was mounted on the wall was about 4 or 5 feet away from the wall. It had literally been ripped off the wall and thrown. Now there's no way that 1 or 2 children or 3 children could have lifted that up and in an instant have thrown it across the wall.
Sure.
You know, there was just the gas pipe that was still connected. The house was showered with stones at one point. You know, this is not stones being thrown at it. It was like, you know, like rain coming down, straight down on top of the house.
Yeah.
How does anybody fake that?
No, yeah. So for you, do you feel that's evidence that this was an authentic paranormal experience?
I do. And I would say to anyone who does doubt it, you know, that's up to them. They're free to doubt that. You should doubt it, everything to do with the paranormal. You should, you know, you should look for the evidence to try to allay those doubts.
Yeah, and kind of critically assess whether or not it seems to be real or what might be questionable.
It's anybody. I feel that anybody that wants to make a comment about the Enfield poltergeist case has to read Guy Lyon Playfair's book, This House is Haunted, before they can do so. You know, if they still think it's a hoax after that, then that's fine. But you know, there are plenty of people out there, especially now the films have come out, who have an opinion, and they haven't really looked into the case hard enough.
No, and of course films tend to exaggerate or change the narrative to make these things.
Was it last year? Sky had that
series, yeah, that's right.
Which was excellent. I totally, you know, I loved watching that. By contrast, the Enfield poltergeist was used as the second film in the Conjuring series, and it was, you know, I have to admit, I've not seen the film. No. I've seen stills of the film, I've seen clips of the film, and there was nothing that actually happened in that house that is depicted in those stills, in those films, and it's
a little bit more Hollywood
it's too much
perception of it.
Too much.
Yeah. Okay, so Jay, Haunted Enfield was published back in 2013. Tell us a little bit about how the book came about.
Well, funny enough, it was the Enfield poltergeist that was my driving force. Not in that I wanted to write about it, but in that I didn't want to write about it. Yeah. Really. I over the years I've collected quite a few books about places and the ghosts that are within them. So like Haunted Hertfordshire, Haunted London, Haunted South London, or wherever. And Enfield usually gets mentioned in books about London or Middlesex, and always because of the poltergeist case. And sometimes there's another case that gets a mention, but nothing else. And growing up in Enfield, I knew that there were other places that were supposedly haunted that had interesting stories about them. And I used to say to myself, why? Why does nobody write about these places? And then eventually a little voice in my head said, well, no one is going to, so why don't you? Yeah. So I did, and I started out thinking, well, I won't bother with the Enfield poltergeist because it's been written about by so many other people, and I probably can't write something that's as good as, certainly not This House is Haunted by Guy Lyon Playfair. And then I thought, well, if I leave it out, then I'm just going to get asked why didn't you put it in.
Yeah, and you might have felt the book was incomplete.
So I had to include it. So it's the 5th chapter, but there's 19 other chapters of places that don't mention the poltergeist, and so that was the reason that I wrote the book, and that's.
Okay, and now I understand that you're working on a follow-up, Haunted Barnet, which is obviously next door to Enfield. Tell us a little bit more about the ghosts of Barnet.
Well, while I was writing Haunted Enfield, I got to a point where I thought that I wasn't going to be able to get enough information for one book on just Enfield. Yeah. So I thought, okay, I'll write about Barnet as well, and that will be the book with the 2 boroughs. And then I did get more information about Enfield, and so I shelved what little I had written about Barnet with the intention of writing a second book. There are just as many possibly haunted sites in Barnet as there are in Enfield. I've only been working on it for the past 5 years, plus the little bit of research I've done prior to that. So that's about half the time that I was working on Enfield. So there's maybe not as many haunted sites that I've found. It does seem that people in Barnet are less willing to talk about such things as they are in Enfield.
Oh, interesting.
Nevertheless, there are places like Avenue House in Finchley, which has there's a ghost that's been described as a governess. I'm not sure whether she's a governess or whether she's a nurse, as the house was briefly used as a hospital at the end of the First World War, or whether there's some other type of connection. That's quite consistent. She's been seen quite a lot. The house is mainly offices, and one of the stories I have there is that a lady who works in the offices there was in the kitchen. There's a kitchen upstairs as well as downstairs. She was in the upstairs kitchen making herself a cup of tea, and having made the tea, she turned round to leave the room, and there's the woman just standing there staring at her.
Oh goodness, it's a bit frightening.
And she said, in an interview with the local newspaper, she said that she didn't feel scared, but she did feel that she needed to not be in that room. And she felt like she was being scrutinised. So that's one of the places. Another place I've included in what I've written so far is the RAF Museum in Hendon, where there are said to be some strange things. There is in fact the Lancaster bomber there is said to be haunted. How true or not that is, I don't know. But it's an interesting story, and the backstory behind that particular aircraft is also quite interesting. And of course the history of the museum, which of course is all that's left of RAF Hendon. And then there's Monk and Hadley, which is a village directly to the north of Barnet, which has at least 11 ghosts.
Oh, really?
It's described as the second most haunted village in the country. I think there's plenty of villages across the country that could actually claim to be the most haunted. There's Prestbury in Gloucestershire, which claims that claim, and there's also a village in Kent whose name I can't remember, which is annoying.
We can tell people that afterwards. We'll put it in the comments under the interview.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Okay, well, that all sounds really interesting, so I think everyone will enjoy that when the book's ready to come out.
Well, I hope so. I hope so.
So have you actually had any paranormal experiences yourself? You've written obviously about other people's observations, but have you ever experienced something that you would describe as...
I haven't had too many, and I'd love to be walking along a dark road one night and just see one.
Well, not many people would say that. That's an interesting perspective.
It's on my bucket list. Before I end up being the subject of the bucket. I was in the Spaniards Inn. In fact, I write about this in Haunted Barnet because the Spaniards Inn is literally on the border of Barnet, and it's just within the just within Barnet. And it was a Saturday afternoon. It was a very busy pub. I was in there with my girlfriend of the time, who is now my wife, and we bought our drinks, looked around the pub, couldn't see anywhere to sit, and from where the bar is, there's a room.
Yeah.
Where we walked into the room. It's full of people. There's all of the seats are taken, but at the far end, I could see a couple who had just stood up and were leaving, so I thought, right, we'll sit there. So we're carefully weaving our way, through the crowd. And the whole time that we're doing this, I can feel somebody just running their fingers through my hair.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just a bit of an itch.
Yeah.
It really felt like somebody was. I had long shoulder length hair at the time. And I could feel that somebody was just really...
Ooh, that's a bit creepy.
And I thought, okay, I'm just going to keep walking, And when we sat down, I mentioned it to Emma, and it had stopped by then.
Yeah.
But that was really odd.
Yeah.
And the pub has a reputation for being haunted.
Oh, really?
And
okay.
I knew at the time that it had a reputation for being haunted.
Yeah.
But I don't think that played into that because I've been to various places that I know are haunted. If I know something, if I know a place is haunted and it's open to the public, that's part of the reason that I'll go there.
Yeah.
But that was the only time I've ever felt, so strong.
Yeah, like it really might have been something.
There are other people who, in an upstairs room, have. At the Spaniards Inn, have claimed or have said that while they've been there, they felt somebody tugging on their sleeve or tugging on their jacket, and I don't know, was it the same spirits?
Yeah.
Was it a spirit? I don't know.
Yeah, I suppose some of these things are a draw for some people, and some people are thinking, I don't think I want to go there now.
It is strange how people's perception of the paranormal. Naturally, it's something that's supposed to scare you.
Yeah.
But we're all taught.
Yeah.
I've been on ghost hunts, and the truth about ghost hunts is that actually they're very quiet.
Yeah.
Quite boring, and it's reviewing whatever information cameras and voice recorders pick up after the event. That is where you start to see whether or not something happened. Anybody that's watched Most Haunted and seen the extreme reactions that happen there, it's not true.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm really fascinated. On the one hand, I feel I would really like to see a ghost, but I don't know how I'd feel if it actually happened to me. But if somebody watching did feel that they'd experienced some sort of paranormal activity, either they thought they saw something or had felt something in the same way that you did, what would you advise them to do about that?
Well, there's all across the country now there are paranormal groups, people interested in researching the paranormal, and that would probably be your first port of call now.
Yeah.
There are usually in those groups people who have psychic abilities, or at least claim to have psychic abilities, who may or may not be able to help. But that's certainly where you should go first of all. The group that I sometimes do investigations with when I have the time is Luton Paranormal Society, who obviously are based in Luton.
Yeah.
They do from time to time. They will take cases where people have contacted them and said to say something's going on. Can you tell me some more about what is happening? And they have a team of, I think it's about 3 or 4 people who will go
to investigate,
to assess, and they'll be looking for a rational explanation.
Yeah.
First of all, to put the person that's called them, put their mind at ease. To say, I know why you think this is a ghost. It's not a ghost.
Yeah.
This is actually what's happening.
Yeah.
Or if they think it, that they do have some sort of paranormal activity.
Yeah.
They'll be able to tell them what they think it is. And also still to allay their fears.
Of course.
It's not all Enfield poltergeist.
Yeah.
Terrain.
Of course. So Jay, for anyone who wants to know a bit more about you and the books that you've written, where can they find out more?
Well, I'm on Twitter at Haunted Enfield.
Yep.
In fact, it's not at Haunted Enfield. Thinking about it, it's at JB Hollis, which is me. So it's JAYB Hollis. But if you typed in a search in the Twitter search Haunted Enfield, I would be one of the first people to come up. And the same with Facebook. If you was to type Haunted Enfield into Facebook, you would find me or find my page anyway.
Okay, great. And we'll put that information up on Enfield Voices as well for anybody who's interested in contacting you. So that draws today's interview to a close. Thanks very much to Jay Hollis for joining us, to Ed, our cameraman, and to all of you watching at home. Stay safe this Halloween, and at least you now know if anything does go bump in the night, you guys know what to do. But for now, goodbye.